Okay, it is 7 o'clock. I think we're ready to go. So first order, welcome everybody. Second, would you please join me in Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So again, welcome everyone here this evening, as well as those watching on YouTube later on. I'll start out with introductions. I'm Lisa Whalen. I'm the mayor. And then to my left here, we have council members Ann McGregor and Claudia Lacey. Absent this evening is council members Kathleen Refkin and Peter Vickery. And then we have our Director of Public Works, Gary Peters. And then we have Allie Paulfus, who is our Director of Administration. And then behind Allie, we have Ann Meyerhoff, who is our city clerk. And then next to me on my right, we have our city administrator, Jasper Krugel. And then we have Brian Grimm, who is our finance director, David Abel, our community development director, and then Sarah Sansala. Welcome back after your vacation. Nice to have you back, as our city attorney with Kennedy and Graven. And then we have our chief of police, Paul Falls. We don't have anybody signed up other than Andrew, and you're going to speak later on anyway. So thank you. With that, any changes to the agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And McGregor made that, and Councilmember Lacey seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. We don't have any special presentations, and nobody signed up under persons to be heard. So we're going to move on to our consent agenda items. There's only 4 this evening. Pretty easy. It's approve our work session meeting minutes from August. I should ask anything you need to remove?
No.
Okay, good. Then it's approve our work session meeting minutes from August 19th, 2024. B is a city council regular meeting minutes from August 19th, 2024. C is a resolution to approve claims. And D is a resolution to approve an IUP at 6900 County Road 110 West. It's a great facility, by the way. All those in favor, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items A through D?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lacey. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Any further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 3-0. If I say 5-0, sometimes it's kind of by habit, so just correct me. So next we have a public hearing before, and it's for considering issuance of a competitive cable franchise with Mid-Continent Communications. I'm going to start out by asking Mr. Voss, who is also with Kennedy and Graven, and he has been our attorney on this matter. So Mr. Voss, if you would like to come forward, give us a 3-minute spiel. And thank you.
Mayor, Council, yes, Bob Voss, Kennedy and Graven, Sarah's colleague. Thank you, and Mayor, as you said, yes, I've been in front of you before on some MediaCom, I think, related matters, and maybe some prior potential competitive franchising matters, and so certainly I've seen you all, and happy to be back. Mayor, Council, you've had interest expressed from a company, Mid-Continent, that's going to come up in a moment and talk to you. They're interested in being in your community, and I think they've already constructed a fair amount in your community, as I understand it, and may be providing some services already. As I think Council probably knows, cable service, TV service over wires in the ground is the area where cities have regulatory authority. Telephone services and internet services are not things that cities really deal with very much, other than the right-of-way aspect, getting into the ground. Other than that, we don't regulate those services, but cable TV services, which Mid-Continent wants to provide, that's something where we issue a franchise. You're well aware that you've got a franchise with MediaCom. We've had an ongoing conversation with MediaCom about constructing services throughout your community. We've encouraged that to happen. We negotiated for that in your prior franchise, and so you've had some experience dealing with cable TV services and franchises through MediaCom in the past. So Mid-Continent is here in town. They're interested. They've told us that they're interested in providing video, cable TV services. There is what I've described to your staff in a memo, a fairly elaborate, I think I probably went beyond that and said it's a little bit overly elaborate process for considering issuance of a competitive franchise. We're following that process now. The The process in very short is that you have decided to issue a notice. You've published a notice saying you're interested in receiving an application from anybody that wants to provide competitive services, competitive to MediaCom. We knew that Midco would be likely the only applicant, but you published that notice. They have now applied for a franchise. They've paid your application fee. Part of their application, the point of their application is that basically what Minnesota state law requires is that you make sure that any company that's going to come in and use your right-of-ways to provide cable service has legal, technical, and financial qualifications to do that service, that they're able to competently do that service. And there is a statutory list of things that a company must provide when they apply to a city for a franchise. The point of that application set of requirements is to make sure that the company provides you the information you need to know about their legal, technical, and financial qualifications. Midco has done that. They've applied properly for a franchise here. They've given you the information that's required. You should have, and they're obviously going to talk about their application. I'm not going to try and characterize their application, but they should have provided to you information sufficient to decide if they have the right qualifications to provide service in town. The other issue, of course, is we need to have a franchise with them like we have with MediaCom. There are terms. A franchise is an elaborate name for a contract. We need to have a contract with Midco. They have looked at the MediaCom franchise already. They've provided some changed provisions to that. I've gone over that. Staff and I are going to work through their proposed changes to the franchise, to the contract. There is going to be some give and take there. I mean, there are some issues they've raised that we'll have to actually, Jasper and Allie and staff and I will have to work through with them. But I don't foresee a big problem. Of course, Mayor, you know, and Council knows, as I've already said, the biggest issue has been with MediaCom getting full build-out to the community. Midco has committed, nearest I can tell, to building out to your community, all of your residents as they sit today. There's an issue, a question that we'll work through with them about future annexation or future developments in your community. How is that going to get served? But as for your existing community, they appear to be committing to do that, and so that is the biggest issue that you've had in the past with MediaCom, and that appears to not be a hard issue to resolve. So that's the quick take, Mayor, on the process. We've received the application, and I'll let Midco talk, and then maybe, Mayor, you want to open the hearing and let anybody else who wants to speak have at it.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions of Mr. Boss? No. Okay.
Good. Very good.
All right, thank you. And Andrew, give us your last name. I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Andrew Curley. I'm the Senior Director of Government Relations with Midco, and appreciate the opportunity to be back before you again. It was actually January of 2022 when I came before the City Council, and we talked about the partnership building out the unserved areas of Minnetrista with broadband service. That partnership, from our perspective, was incredibly successful. We appreciated the warm reception we got from the city and from the residents, and so we've had a really good ongoing partnership with the city of Minnetrista. As Bob kind of laid out earlier this year in May, we informed the city that our intentions to build out the rest of the Minnetrista, and that project, as noted, is ongoing. Our intention is to build out all of the city of Minnetrista, all of the locations as they currently sit with fiber to the home services. Broadband services, as we talked about, capable of 5 gigabits per second upload and download. But as we're talking about here today, we also want to add video service. Bob did a good job of explaining today the areas we currently serve in Minnetrista. We do not provide video service because we do not have a cable TV franchise. Also, as noted, we have started construction already this year. You might have seen some of it across the street as you drove in this morning or this evening. And so we are constructing in this area, but any addresses that are currently available for service or will be activated here in the near future would only be data only, broadband only, pending a franchise with the city. So as I noted, we did begin construction in July. It's our intention to build out over the next 3 or so years, so 24, 25, 26. Also leave the caveat that construction is a interesting process of weather, supply chain, permitting, so there always is the possibility of bleeding over into 2027. But our intention is roughly 3-year build to build out the entire city with fiber services. And again, offering a video product. We call it Midco TV. It's an IPTV product that pairs well with the fiber to the home service, offer over 300 channels, 4 different packages. It's different than your typical coax video product, but it's something that pairs well, like I said, with our fiber to the home service. Midco does have over 154 franchises currently in the state of Minnesota, so we do have a track record of building out cable TV systems across really the upper Midwest, but 154 here in the state of Minnesota, so we're confident in understanding the process and the expectations of us as a franchisee with the city of Minnetrista. And then lastly, I just want to make a couple of introductions with me from Midco. Is Ellie Burrows. She's our government relations manager here in Minnesota, member of our government relations team. Previously, you may have worked with Melissa Wolf, who was our government relations manager previously. She departed last year, and Ellie is her replacement. And we have Ryan Barr. Ryan Barr is our construction project manager. Ryan's team is the one building out this network here in Minnetrista. His team are boots on the ground, the contractors that were working across the street. I would note that during the construction process, residents should expect to receive multiple communications from Midco. There'll be letters, postcards, do door tagging, and on those communications, there'll be an 800 number that says, reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. Actually, a member of Ryan's team, his name is Dan Hines, is our construction coordinator. He's on the ground here. That 800 number goes directly to his cell phone, and he's able to address any questions or concerns. I know Gary and Allie have communicated with Dan a couple different times already this summer, so hopefully Dan can be in position to address any questions or concerns, but Ryan oversees that entire team. And then we have Jason Sachs, our general manager of field operations, and Eric Householder, our field operations manager. But the way I look at it is Ryan's team is building the network. Jason and Eric's team will be operating the network ongoing. So when you see the Midco trucks out here long-term doing installs at people's homes, if there are hopefully not too many service calls, but if there are, their teams will be the ones that will field those calls and interact with customers on the ground. So I just want to make sure we introduce them to the city. So ongoing between the 5 of us, we can address any questions or concerns you might have. So with that, I will stand by for any questions you may have.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are the wires under the ground or above the ground?
So we primarily underground. There will be some areas that we're going to need to do aerial, where there's maybe a telephone pole that we'll attach to, but our preference is to go underground as much as possible. But working around lakes and different structures, there are going to be times that we're going to have to go aerial.
Okay, I'm actually thrilled about this. And so, are there any major hurdles that the city has to work through?
From our perspective, no. Yeah, there's the thing I would say between the two franchises is we're building a fiber to the home network. Current provider has a coax network, so there's terminology in there that's technically different for the network we're building. And then, as Bob noted, our intention is to build out the entire city, and so the franchise area, as we look at it, will be different than your current providers is built out to.
And is it a big problem?
I think we can work through it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are we going to work through it by the end of the year?
That would certainly be our intention. Yeah, and we definitely, we obviously we're back and forth with any kind of contract negotiation. We are not intended to be something that is going to be any roadblocks. Our intention is to get this done as quickly as possible and be able to provide video service.
So maybe another question to Mr. Voss then, or Voss. Sorry, Bob. Is so the franchise agreements have to be the same. So because of the technicality, like as Andrew pointed out, is can they be different then?
So Mayor and Council, great question. So it's actually a complicated question. I'll make it simple. State law says that on 3 issues, franchise fees, service area, and PEG, community programming,
Right.
the franchises have to be the same. But in your franchise, my understanding is you had a different attorney work on that franchise when you had it with Mediacom, but I think I'm familiar with the provisions of it. There are some rights that Mediacom has if you make differences on other issues, if there
Okay.
are differences on other issues. And so I think essentially the marching orders that your staff and I have are to try to keep there to be parity between the franchises as much as possible. Midco would like there to be a few differences, and so it's sort of how much difference can there be in massaging through that. And to Councilmember, your question, I mean, the issue, I think that the core issue for this city, as I understand it, tell me if I'm wrong, but remains getting service to everyone in town. You want everyone to have high-speed services. You want everyone to have video services. That's the core important issue. On that issue, I don't think we're very far apart. There will be some language massaging, but essentially what Andrew has just said is my understanding from the application. They intend to serve or make available service to everyone in town, and that's critical. So, yeah.
All right. So so far I've heard nothing but good, so that's great. So I think we're looking forward to it. But any other questions, staff or anybody? All right. So thank you. We're I have to have the public hearing right now, so I'll open the public hearing. If there's anybody here that wishes to make comments or have questions regarding this franchise or this partnership, I'll call it, you may do so. You have to come to the podium and state your name and address. Okay, I don't see anybody rushing to the podium, and I didn't expect that. So I'm going to close the public hearing. And we don't need to make any decisions tonight. This is basically for public information and our information. There will be a resolution coming back to us probably soon. And then we'll be approving that franchise agreement at that time.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, what will come back, I think, will be very short, and I promise you really short. When I say the word report, it always makes it sound like it's going to be 30 pages. It's not. It'll be a couple of pages long report about their financial, legal, and technical qualifications. Right. I anticipate that report is going to say they are qualified. You can conclude they are qualified. And then, of course, there will be separately the contract.
Right. What
we've worked out, that will come forward at the same time, so it will be sort of a package deal. And I'm optimistic that it will all be positive for the community. So
good. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Looking forward to it. So that concludes that the public hearing aspect, so we can now move on to business items. You're all welcome to stay, but you don't have to. First business item is our budget process and approvals, and I'll hand this over to Mr. Grimm.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. So there'll be three annual items that we do, I guess, every year at this time. There'll be the adoption of the preliminary levy, and then it's also, we've done in the past, the doing the debt levy at the 100% versus the 105%, which we've been able to do by maintaining good fund balances, and then setting the public comment date. So as far as the first item, I guess the most important item is setting the adoption of the 2025 preliminary levy, and we did have good discussions back in August at the work session, and as far as what all the services needs of the community, and how best to balance them, obviously, with our tax levy. And basically what's presented in the packet was the outcome of those meetings. The preliminary levy, we're planning on setting here tonight would be a gross levy of $7,138,067. It's about a 9.4% increase from the previous year, about a little over a $600,000 increase. As far as, we'd be looking for a resolution to adopt that, and I'll stand for any questions.
I'll just make a comment. I'll go along with this with the preliminary levy. What I'd like us to do over the course of the next several months before we do the final is have a discussion about the engineering technician. And so in our current budget, the way it's presented, we are going to be hiring a technician about July, mid-year. So I talked to Mr. Jasper Krugel, and I said, it makes sense to me anyway, in my mind, that maybe we consider hiring this person at the beginning of the year, January, February timeframe, somebody with experience. They can then handle all of the road projects, the overseeing and the management of that. We're paying that person versus paying a consultant to do it. And then we can take it out of the road levy because it'll be primarily for roads. And then next year we can see how we want to divvy that up. But to me, it didn't make a lot of sense to hire somebody with very little experience mid-year and then have the consulting company basically kind of train that person, if you will. So it made more sense to hire them earlier on.
This isn't the first time you're hearing this.
No.
Okay.
Well, not,
You're looking at me like
thought,
this is the first time.
no, I think there's definitely some flexibility as far as using road CIP funds versus general fund dollars. And I think it's going to be just a new position that we haven't had before. But I think there's definitely ways to do it that for very little impact to the levy, if not even potentially maybe saving a few
It will
dollars.
would probably save a few dollars because there was like 27,000 that was scheduled for the general levy, and then 27,000 for utilities. You might even we could divide that up differently, but even if we save 30,000 and took it out of the road levy, which there's sufficient funds in there, then we could. And I'm not saying we change the levy amount right now because we can change it. We can lower it before December. Or by December, we just can't raise it, so we can leave it right now. But I do want to at least think about that because lowering it another 30,000 would take it down to about 9% increase versus 9.44. It's not a big deal, but it brings it down to that 9%. With our growth, makes it about a 7% impact to our existing residents. So that's just something to consider.
Why wouldn't we consider that? Why wouldn't we just do that?
Well, we can do it later. I'm just saying because right now all of the paperwork says what it is, and we can still lower it before December. So that's not it. We can't raise it.
Yeah,
No, I mean higher early opposed to later. I need your suggestion.
Yeah, I think it would work out if we get a good candidate. So I think what if I could maybe summarize for the mayor, what we'd be looking to do is post the position in January, see if we get good candidates. If we get good candidates, bring it to the personnel committee, see if we want to hire it. That would then be offset by some of the consultant dollars that we would spend on construction observation in the summer of 2025. Wouldn't really have a budget impact. We would use street CIP for that. We just need to get that authorized by council. So if we don't get a good candidate, then we're looking at hiring somebody probably at the end, maybe Q3 of 2025. And then kind of training them in and getting them ready for 2026. It's a tough position to fill. We'd likely have to do some recruiting and try to figure out if there's somebody around here or that we know that would work out. But that would be the only way it would make sense to do it in the beginning of 2025.
Why is it tough?
So it's very competitive. A lot of the people that we would be pursuing are already likely employed by an engineering group like WSB because they have that experience. So we'll have to make sure that we're competitively paying these individuals or this individual and to make sure that we can kind of recruit them to come in. So, and there aren't that many. It's basically somebody that maybe went to college, has an engineering degree, civil engineering degree, that's working to get their PE, maybe just got their PE but not quite on the track to be a principal or something at an engineering group that they want to come over to the municipal side. We saw that happen with our previous kind of assistant city administrator or city engineer. Adam Gabois. So he kind of jumped from the private sector to the public sector. So something like that would be great.
What's the range?
I believe this is
We
a.
don't even know.
Yeah, we don't know
Well, we
yet.
don't
It's
know
approved at
Is
a
it?
range that would likely hire a less qualified candidate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But I only looked at like an entry-level engineer task, so.
So I mean, those are things. So I want to leave it in the budget right now and just have a little more discussion about it, and then get some more of those questions answered and more information.
And why can't we just decide and then break the job in the next month and then post it then and hire it then?
But well,
I mean, we could do that. I mean, we have the job description that's already been reviewed and looked at. We could post it probably. We could post it whenever we want. It's just a matter of getting the budget lined up. Brian would have to get it lined up so that we wouldn't exceed the 9.4% levy increase. We'd have to maneuver some probably street CIP dollars or something
right.
like that. So.
But I think that would be perfectly okay because this individual would be primarily for 2025 anyway working on. I would say not everything, but the brunt of their position would be road projects.
So if that's the direction, we could get that prepared and we could pursue that. All right. I'm seeing three
Okay.
three individuals nodding to get this moving, so we can at least post it and maybe hire somebody early 2025.
Yeah.
So the direction is to post it as soon as possible?
Well, you wouldn't post it this soon because you wouldn't want them on board until at least January, right?
Holiday season gets tricky too.
Yeah.
So maybe November, mid-November.
You could put when the hiring date
Oh,
is
Yeah.
in the posting too. So a lot
I
of
feel like October to mid-November hire date or onboard date, Jan 1.
Okay. Okay,
That's production.
okay. So then the question is, we pass the levy as is? And because then Brian has to figure out how much to take out of the levy. And that's what I'm saying is, he can do that between now and December.
I would recommend passing it as is, because we still don't know exactly how the rest of our revenues and expenditures are going to flush out for the rest of this year, how we have building permits, and how we look at our fund balance. So I would say, versus taking 30,000 out now, I would say
Yeah.
leave
Leave it and then
as
take
is.
it out in
Yeah,
December
see what
if
we're
we
doing in
can.
October, November, December.
Okay, okay.
if the goal is to get it right around 9%, I think that we can work on that as a staff and figure out a way to do that. Hopefully, unless there's some outside factors that come in higher than what we expect.
Okay, all right. Great, all right. So, and then the 100% of the bond payments, we're, we'll do this, yeah, hold on. I just want to see if there's any other questions on that. So no questions on that one, right? And then the date is fine, the December
Yeah, yeah,
2nd
December 2nd, yeah.
at 7 o'clock? We're okay with that? All right. Any other questions? Okay, so is there a motion to pass resolution number 73-24, approval of the 2025 preliminary tax levy?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Any further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
And then the next one is a resolution number 74-24, approve the debt levy at 100% of the 2025 bond payments. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Any further questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 3-0. And then the next one is approve the 2024 date for the public comments on the 2025 levy and budget, which will be December 2nd at 7 p.m. here at City Hall during our regular City Council meeting.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lacy. All those in favor signify with aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, motion passes. All right. Thank you. Thank you, staff, too. And I know we'll continue to work on this. So next, we have a resolution for the pre-sale report and resolution providing for the issuance and the sale of general obligation bonds series 2024A in the proposed aggregate principal amount of 4.3 or $4,330,000. As we know, and Mr. Todd Hagan is here with Ellers this evening to guide us through this process. And this is for there's 675,000, if I'm 615 for equipment certificates, and the remainder is for the wells and all of the other things that we're doing for our water infrastructure.
Correct.
Not everything, of course. Next year we'll have to take out more. All right.
Sure.
Well, good evening, Mr. Hagan, and thank you for coming. It's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, council members, staff. Todd Hagan from Ellers and Associates. So tonight we have a pre-sale report in front of the council and a resolution for your consideration after I talk about the report. As the mayor has stated, we're financing around $4.2 million of project costs. The bond is at $4.33 million with the cost of issuance included in there. So $2.5 million goes for wells and water main at a 20-year term. $600 goes for equipment, various equipment that's I think detailed in your resolution at Exhibit A, so you guys can take a look at what that list is, and that's a 5-year part of the bond issue to keep within the expected useful life of the equipment, and then $1.1 million for preliminary expenses for your larger water treatment plant that's probably coming more on board in 2025, but this will get us going to sort of pay all those preliminary expenses in the meantime, and that's a 20-year part of the bond issue. So as far as the bidders of the bonds are concerned, they'll be looking at a 20-year general obligation bond at $4.33 million from the city of Minnetrista. You currently have a AA+ bond rating, just one below a AAA. We'd like to see it stay there. Upgrades are great, but there's lots to do in town, so that would be great if we'd stay at the AA+ stable outlook, I believe that was. We have that rating call with Standard & Poor's already scheduled for September 24th. So we're getting everything in place for an October 7th bond sale. So we go through the pre-sale report. You folks take a look at the terms and conditions as we talk about here. You're basically approving that resolution that sets that bond sale for October 7th. So we'll come back with bids. We usually get a few, right, for the city. Highly rated city, easy to understand bond issue. You guys are out in the market pretty frequently, so that helps as well. Good quality bond issue. So looking for some good interest rates. The more bids, I think, typically the better the interest rates are. So it's kind of what we've got here is we've combined two bond issuance authorities into one bond. Back in the day you'd issue two bonds, so we kind of are helping with the cost of issuance on this by bundling the bond issues, which you folks do, as we try to do. So again, 20-year water portion, 5-year equipment portion on this. We've got a call date, which is a prepayment date, cutoff period basically on this. So the sweet spot as far as offering this bond issue with a prepayment date in around that year 8 or 9 is typical.
I was going to ask you
Yeah.
about that because generally it's been around 7 years.
Well, we'll try to push it.
Okay.
So
Do you get better rates?
well, what we don't want to do is have you penalized for that.
Okay, that's
So
what I
the
was-
shorter you get that, the more maybe the more the bidders will look at that and want a higher interest rate for that.
Okay.
Because they're looking at who they sell the bonds to, that Minnetrista would, have the opportunity to take their bonds away earlier than sort of what the market
Yeah,
sort of
okay.
says. But we'll run this through our quality control, and we always try to push it for Minnetrista. Thank you very much for that. But right now, it's somewhere around 2034 is kind of the sweet spot, basically. We have been getting a lot of bids on bonds. The market appears to be hungry out there. This is a little different than like a bank financing where you hear the bank rates are maybe going to go down. They're really high right now. This is more of a supply and demand out into the public market. So these underwriters, broker-dealers, are getting their money from mutual insurance companies, right, buy bonds, and individuals buy bonds, and retirement funds buy bonds, and that's where they get their money from, and really not from banks. So what we've seen out there is when we do just plain bank placements, the interest rates are very high. And when we do bond issues out into the public market, they come in a lot lower, even with the extra sort of costs that are involved with getting this thing up and running out into the public market. So we've got some cushion. If you look at the bond runs I've got in there, the preliminary runs for 20 years, we've got about 50 basis points of cushion in there just to allow for market movement, just in case something happens to the negative for us. But we're looking at somewhere around 3.5, 3.6%. Hopefully, when it come back for the bond sale, that's where that will be. So that's a pretty good interest rate.
Didn't we
if
get that
we're
on
wrong.
our other bond that we just did, 3.4? 3.4?
Yeah, you're Minnetrista, right? You're high quality. And yeah. And if you look at the graph on the report too, you see it going up and down a little bit at the end here. So it looks like we're at the downward slide if you take a really sort of look at where we're at. So we're seeing rates better than they were a few weeks ago. So we'll cross our fingers and we'll see what happens. But it's market rate, and we're going to get what we get on that day. So that's good for you. That's accountability for the council to say that you let everybody out there have a fair shake at this and come back and give us a bid. We didn't pick just one firm to work with because it does vary. We'll have winners from, they may be third place on one, first on another, sixth place on another. It just sort of depends what bond issue they're looking for and the quality. So yeah, other than that, I mean, that's That's what we're looking at here on this bond issue. You've issued them before. We always look at your existing debt too, by the way, and you know rates are a little higher than what your existing debt is right now. But I take a look at that every quarter, and if rates start going down, I look at it a little more frequent, so I let staff know how that looks for refinancing too. But right now we don't see anything obviously on the horizon, but you never know. There's always next year. We'll see what happens. Other than that, we're going to use your bond attorney from Kennedy and Graven. You know, they do everything here, right, in Minnetrista. They even help with bond counsel stuff, so that's good. Bond Trust Services, your paying agent, and then we're going to use Standard & Poor's for your rating agency too. So pretty standard bond issue out in the market. Like I say, easy to understand. So we're looking at this to go pretty smooth. And thanks to staff for putting together all the preliminary things that we ask of them to put the official statement, the offering circular together. That's a kind of a complicated document that the bidders look at to bid on the bonds. It's not only the bond rating, but they do their internal reviews to look at that document as well. So that's a lot of hard work as well. So, but for council, hey, you're just passing stuff that looks like it's working for you. So that's what we try to do. Other than that, I'm here for any questions or comments you have. So I'll yield to the council right now.
So I have another question.
Yep.
So under the rating, you said that we have a double A, and then you said in the packet it says that the city will request a new rating for the bonds. Why would we request a new rating when we're already double A plus?
I know, right? Well,
Okay.
every time we issue a bond, we have
Do we have
go
to get
through
a new rating?
Yes, and then
Wait,
if you
darn
don't, let's
it.
say you don't issue a bond for a couple of years, they do surveillance on you too. But that
Oh,
one's
okay.
free.
Okay.
So they want to make sure that you're still okay, because there's lots of folks out there that are holding your bonds. So
Sure,
they're
sure.
trading at the double A plus. You just want to make sure that's still the quality that's there.
Okay.
So
Do you anticipate any change?
I don't. Fund balances are good, right?
Yeah.
You've got, cash is a big thing, right? So that's,
Right.
you don't want to dwindle that down because you need some cash.
Right.
Don't we all, right?
Right.
Because we want to pay our bills on time and everything as well. So, so that's, so that's what, it's on the general obligation too. It's on your full faith and credit to pay. So it's all about your ability to pay
Right.
property taxes, in the city. Great questions, yeah.
A lot of my questions in your talk.
Good.
Very good.
Yeah, and there's continuing disclosure that's part of this too. So people that own the bonds too, every time there's a new audit, right, we have to beam that up to the cloud so everybody can see that you're healthy and everything's good. You still exist, right? And so there's lots of safeguards here, and that's why you get those low interest rates on the general obligation bonds. Revenue
That's why
bonds,
we
that's
want
another
to have a
story.
good fund balance as well.
Yeah, that's a big
General
thing.
fund balance, yeah.
Yeah, keep with your policy and then
Yes.
some, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
no, that's a number one. So
All right. If there's no other questions, then is there a motion to approve the pre-sale report and resolution providing for the issuance and sale of the general obligation bond, Series 2024A, in the proposed aggregate principal amount of $4,330,000?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. McGregor. Is there a second? Thank you, Ms. Lacy. Is there any other questions? Good. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 3-0.
thank you very much. Yeah, appreciate the business.
Thank you. All right. Next is approving ordinance number 491 regarding the park dedication fees and the interim uses. I'm going to hand that over to Mr. Abel.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, members of council. So as per the report, and as the council may recall, we've had a couple recent land use applications that sparked some discussion about bringing forward some ordinance changes. Staff also took that opportunity then with the direction from council. We included, as you can see in your report, there are 7 different bullet points there. Those are some housekeeping items that staff has just kind of made note of over the last couple of years that have been points of discussion when different building permits come in, or whether it's code enforcement, what have you, that we've included in as part of this per the direction from council to make some of those changes. So I'll just briefly summarize some of those bullet points that are in your staff report included in the ordinance 491. The first, and I think one of the bigger ones that was derivative of some of the recent subdivisions we had was the park dedication fee and that max amount given land prices and the fact that the park dedication hasn't changed, or it's been that way since 2004. So the proposal is to change that from the max of $25,000 to the max of $37,000. Another change, this is more of an internal one that came from staff. Believe it or not, we've had a lot of discussions with residents about what is a hedge. And so we tried to make it a little more clear and added some language there that we hope will at least help with that discussion. That has been a point of discussion, like I said, over the last couple of years. Another point of discussion was lot coverage and its definition. We've cleaned that up, put it in a different form, put it in bullet point form, which I think looks a little cleaner and makes it a little more clear. And then the other thing that was new to that is, as the council may recall, we do now enter into a maintenance agreement for pervious paver driveways. That is something new that we had done as a policy, but we thought it was important to include that in a lot coverage definition, which we've done here as well. The other big one that council gave direction on was the change from the conditional uses to interim uses. One of the big drivers there was the notice radius. That was a discussion we had at a work session, trying to figure out if there was a way to increase that radius for public hearing notices. And changing from a conditional to an interim does change it from the 500 feet to a 1,500 foot radius for any public hearing notices in the agricultural preserve zoning districts. Another one that we've been kind of sitting on for a while is the fence height. A while back, probably a year or two ago, the building code, Minnesota Municipal Building Code, changed their maximum fence height from 6 feet to 7 feet. So this changes that in our code as well. You don't need a permit for that, but it did increase that from 1 foot. Another thing we've had as a point of discussion is in-ground swimming pools and the distance from principal structures. We did clear that up. That wasn't exactly clear before, so it is a minimum of 10 feet from the principal structure. And then lastly, the change with the home occupations as well, going from the conditional use, adding that interim use as well, which also helps with the notice radius, but then also ties a home occupation to a person and not the property as well. So those are, in just brief, quick summary, as the bullet points in the staff report. We do have the draft ordinance 491 included in your packet. Planning Commission this is Chapter 5, so there was a public hearing notice issued. They did review this at their August 26th meeting. No one spoke during the public hearing, and the Planning Commission made a motion to recommend approval as written with a 4-0 vote. We have a resolution for publication by title and summary in your staff report as well, that if the council is looking to approve the ordinance, we'd ask that you approve that as well to save costs on publishing the newspaper.
And Madam Mayor,
Yes.
one thing I'll point out with that is we do need 4 votes on that, so you'll have to bring that back.
Oh, that's right.
You can do the ordinance.
Yeah. So we're really not going to take any action on this.
You can approve the ordinance.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But the title and summary.
We'll just bring that back under consent.
Okay,
as long as we
under
have
consent.
more people
Okay.
explain.
All right.
Can I ask a question? Lisa?
Yeah, go ahead.
Madam Mayor, as far as the ordinance is concerned, let's just talk about the fence for a minute. So you said it's gone from 6 to 7 feet. I want to know what a fence is. What is a fence? It's a legit question. Is it wood? Is it a hedge? Is it stone? Is it iron? Because a fence, by its nature, is
man-made.
something that divides one thing from another, right? One piece of property from another. So if someone puts in, and you say they don't need to have a permit to put up a 7-foot fence, what if they put in 15 feet hedges that are impermeable? You couldn't walk through them, so that would essentially be a fence.
Well, that's what the hedge, we've added the definition of a hedge.
Is a fence. Can be a fence. Can't be over 7 feet,
No.
right?
No.
Mm-mm. A hedge can be as tall as you want it to be.
How is it different than a fence?
So we have the definition here for what we're adding, a hedge is a line of closely spaced, 3 feet or closer, shrubs and sometimes trees, planted and trained to form a barrier or to mark the boundary of an area. So that is our definition of a hedge.
A hedge.
What's the definition of a fence?
Looking to see what
Or
we
assume
have. We have a definition.
man built or something. Built
I just don't see the difference, because if you don't want your neighbor to put a giant wall, 70 feet long, blocking your view of a park or something, why can they do it with trees but not a fence of wood?
Well, the only time we regulate the height of a hedge is in the lake shore, on the lake.
But yet you don't enforce it. And this is something I've fought over forever, because when you're talking about looking at lake views, and a neighbor can put in 50 feet of 30-foot high technia arborvitaes that you can't walk through or see through, that's a fence. I don't think we should distinguish between a fence and hedges. I think they're the same thing.
So, yeah, but in that case, my entire property is a fence. My entire property is a fence because we have nothing but hedges and trees on 10 acres. So are you going to tell
But
me
if
I
you're
can't
blocking,
do it?
but you're not
Of
blocking.
course you are. The people across the road can't see through my property now because I have trees and bushes and.
Well, you said there's something about Lake Shore, so how does that
The
differ?
only time we regulate the height of a hedge or a fence, from a view standpoint, is within the 75-foot setback of the lake. Anything between 75 feet and the OHW. Otherwise, anywhere else in Minnetrista, you could grow a hedge 100-foot tall, and there's nothing that would regulate that. It's only
So is
within
it that
lake
the hedge
shore.
is more attractive than a 100-foot tall fence?
Well, you can't build a 100-foot tall fence. It would blow over. It would.
Well, let's just assume you could. What's the difference? Is my question. Because there are, the lake shore looks like this, and some houses, might have 4 rooms that have a great view of the lake, but if the neighbor decides to put a 12, 30-foot technia arborvitae, it would block both floors of the lake. So I think a hedge acts as a fence if it bothers a neighbor. If your neighbors might love the privacy, but if one neighbor says, "Hey, you've just blocked half of my lake view,"
But do you really have the right beyond? So what David is saying is you have 75 feet where you can't have a hedge or a fence.
Mm-hmm.
So beyond that, do you really
over,
have a
over
right?
4 feet tall.
Yeah,
You
over-
can have a hedge up to the lake, but it can't be over 4
4
foot
feet
tall. The issue, and I know what you're talking about in your neighborhood, and that's been the issue out there in terms of enforcement, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that a hedge or isn't it? And that's what we're trying to clear up here, because people were starting, that's not, they're 6 feet apart, and I planted those 25 years ago, and now they grew to this, and that's not a hedge. You can look up hedge on the internet, and it'll be, depending upon where you go, there's so many different versions of what is a hedge. And so we've said if there are 3, we've added the distance to it, and now to make it more clear, you go down there and you can measure from, the root to the root and say how far apart are they, and is it 3 feet or not, and if it's greater, then it's not going to be a hedge, and if it's that or less, it's a hedge, and if it's within the lakeshore setback, it can't be over 4 foot tall.
Yeah, that doesn't apply to the situation I'm thinking about.
But I don't think we can write an ordinance because of one situation like that, because that would be.
Well, I just think it should be hedge and fence are the same thing, because it's the same thing.
But then nobody could have trees taller than 7 feet.
But they're blocked together is a
But
different thing.
what do you do on my property? It's 10 acres of wooded property, and a lot of the trees are 2 feet apart or 3 feet apart, and they're 100 feet tall. That's a hedge then.
I don't think so. I think there's a difference between a forest and a hedge. I'm sorry. This is just like it's a constant problem in lakeshore property. So I think it behooves us to get this right.
Well, it does, but then my question also is, as a riparian property owner, what are your rights in terms of view?
I
Are
have
your-
7 feet.
Okay, so if your lot is, let's say, 150 feet, whatever it is, do you have the right to the view to this side and how much? Do you have a right of the view to this side and how much? That really is what it boils down to. What are your rights as a riparian owner to have the view be, 180 degrees, or is it 90? Is it just straight ahead, or is it, what is it? That's the question. I mean, well, but you're talking the hedges. You're talking about hedges preventing people from having views, right?
Yes, but again, if you're talking about a lake view, and if you've built a house and you've taken out all the permits, and 5 bedrooms have great views of the lake, but your neighbor puts in a 30-foot structure wall of trees that are 15 feet in front of all of the bedrooms, and you're staring at a wall of trees, this should be an issue, because you can't put a brick wall up between 2 properties. I mean, think of it in that. That's just, granted, I'm giving you why being devil's advocate here. But can you build a fence 30 feet high? No. Why not?
Yeah, you could.
You can?
Yeah, we did get to get a building permit. It'd have to be engineered. It'd have to be structurally engineered, and it'd have to be stamped and reviewed by. It'd need a permit. It'd have to look at setbacks, but theoretically, yes, you could. If someone wanted to build that, not within the lake view, not within 75 foot
feet.
of the lake, but we've had 15, I think even there's some up, there's a 17-foot high fence that got built, and they had to get it structurally engineered.
But it's not really 7 feet high. You can go higher than 7 feet sometimes.
You got to get
With the building
Yeah,
permit.
you got to get a building permit, which it becomes very expensive, obviously, because you got to go down just as far, if not twice as far as you're going up, and it's got to have footings that are structurally designed and engineered and approved. So you can have a fence over 7 foot tall. You just got to get a permit. So this exempts you from building code. You don't have to meet building code. You go out there and you build it however you want to build it. We're not inspecting it. We're not reviewing it.
There's also the view shed ordinance that we have.
For structure.
For structure,
Yeah.
so when you come
Yeah.
in, so that would come into play. So when a house is built, then there's that, they can't go ahead of, I don't know.
Yeah, and back to if there's greater than 75 feet, if they're both at 100, you have 2 neighbors at 100,
Then it's 100.
then their lot in between there wants to go at 75, they can't, they
Right.
need to be back at 100.
Right.
They can't, that house can't go in front of them and block their views of the lake.
Okay. All right. The only other one, and again, we don't have to make a decision tonight on this, is it's called keeping of non-domestic animals. So, tigers and lions and bears kind of thing, and which is an interim use, which is allowed. And so at some point, again, I'm not saying it has to be tonight, but I want to make sure that we're not allowing tigers and, anacondas or, very dangerous wild animals. Well, I talked to David. I don't think so. Well, and the comment was, well, we've never had this. However, we have had this. There was tigers in our community, and they came in for a CUP, and we denied it, and then they had to get rid of their tigers. So, this was a long time ago. Was it about, 20 years ago, do you think? Yeah. But it was up there on 26, and yeah. Yeah, so anyhow, at some point, we should maybe think about changing the definition or maybe listing the non-domestic animals that can be, like if somebody wanted to do a petting zoo, they can do that, except they can't do tigers and lions, that kind of thing. They could do maybe fox and coyotes or whatever. So, again, I'm saying keeping it as is, but bringing it back at some point to define which non-domestic animals can be considered for. But an otter is fine. That's I know non-domestic, but it's not it's not a carnivore. So yeah. It just might be something to consider. Yeah. So I mean, and that's, I'm not talking about, those kind of animals. I'm talking about, I'm just trying to lighten up things. So, and I know. Come on, we have to have fun. And so let me make a suggestion. Let's pass this right now, and then if you want to talk a little bit more about fencing or hedges, we can bring that back as well. But I think at some point we should talk about which non-domestic animals can be kept or can be used. So, all right, that's just my recommendation. So, all right. Any other questions? All right. So, is there then a resolution? Let's see, a motion to for ordinance number 499 regarding the park dedication fees and the interim uses. So that would be resolution number 76-24, authorizing. Oh, that's authorizing the publication. So first we have to approve these changes. So is there correct? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the changes for ordinance number 491 regarding park dedication fees and interim uses? Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify with aye. 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 All those opposed, motion passes. And then the publication of ordinance, will bring that back and do that on consent for our next meeting. So with that, that concludes our business items, and we'll move on to staff reports. Mr. Peters.
Madam Mayor, Council, thank you. Just an update on the water treatment plant operations here. We are continuing the design of that. We did get some good news this week that the DNR has, I shouldn't say the DNR has really approved this, but we're on to our next step in our well production. They have granted us the go-ahead to onto the next phase, which will be investigating to make sure the surrounding wells and the lakes around there will not be impacted by our well drilling. There are 20 public water basins and wetlands within that 1.5 mile radius. There's also 79 domestic wells in that area that'll have to be investigated and looked at. And of course, there's one endangered species. They're cerulean warbler, and 3 species of concern: the trumpeter swan, the least darter, and the Henslow sparrow that within the 2 miles of the site. So we'll have to kind of do our due diligence to make sure that there's nothing in that area, which there isn't.
There isn't. Yeah.
But there isn't. But, I mean, we just have to
Right.
cross our T's, dot our I's, and do that. So that'll be the next step. The other good news that we also obtained with this is they are accepting our well 4 and our test well here for for monitoring wells.
Okay.
So they will be converted over to that. They will have to be hooked up to our SCADA system so they can take hourly readings. We will have to do monthly manual readings on that. So, but that's good news. We want to drill 2 new wells at least.
Right,
So,
Yeah.
the only caveat to this is they stated that they are looking into the Jordan on here. That is
That's a tunnel.
that's a TCW.
Yeah.
Yes. So we have to get some clarification. If they are looking for a Jordan aquifer, hopefully we can use the other test well that's on site there that we have. Otherwise, we still have to may drill one. But hopefully we can make this work with them and appease them. So
All right. Be really nice to them, Gary. Maybe they'll get out of
we're trying. We're being as nice as we can to move forward. But this step, talking with the gentleman at AE2S here, they not real concerned. I mean, this is just step 2. It's
Yeah.
very simple. It's
Okay.
always this way. So yeah, it should go fairly quickly and moving on to the final stages here. So the other news is the Pember is in the neighborhood there in Woodland Cove. They are plastic welding pipe together for pulling the new lines in. They've got quite a bit streamed out through there. They're getting ready. I think they'll probably start next week pulling that pipe and getting that in. So digging the bore pits and start pulling it. So it should
Good.
go fairly quickly once they're in that operation. So it's good to see that they're out there, they're working, and they're
Yeah.
working fast. So
Great.
it's all good news so far.
Yep. So far. All right. Good. We like good news. All right. Anybody else? Any other staff reports?
We do need a liaison for the September 23rd
Plan.
planning
I might be able to do that. Put me down tentatively. I just have to look at my calendar.
commission.
I just have to look. All right. Otherwise, we might have to tap Peter or something like that. All right. Okay. All right. And then, any reports? Do you have anything? Okay, so we had our ribbon cutting. You were there. Thank you for coming. And we did our ribbon cutting for one of our parks, the Jean. I always called it the Jean Lanier Park. Is that the right? Lanier. Lanier. All right, for that park. And but it was kind of a two-pronged thing. It was a dedication of a bench for a memorial for our CSO who passed away a couple of years ago, Kevin Walsh, and his wife was there. And so it was a dedication of that, and then also just the ribbon cutting for the park itself. It was very well attended. A lot of police officers were there, including Chief False, and then also Deputy Chief Craig Squires, and along with some other police officers. I think just as a show of support and recognition of the time that Mr. Walsh spent on the force. He was 12 years as a reserve officer and then 3 years as a CSO officer. So 15 years dedication to the police department and to our community. That was very nice. And then, so we did that. And then the other thing that's really nice, I just want to point out, is the help that Hennepin County gave us with the parking lot, because had we not been able to get that access onto 44, we would have had to spend a gazillion more dollars on a trail, as you recall. So that was really a nice feature, and Commissioner Kevin Anderson was there to show his support as well. So that was nice. We have, upcoming another fire partnership meeting next week. So myself, and I think Kathleen will be there as well. 7 a.m. So, and then also Northwest League is next week. And then the other thing, just as a reminder, the forum that was scheduled, the League of Women Voters Forum that was scheduled for the 12th has been canceled because there are we're running unopposed, everybody. So, and then also just everybody, if you should see this gentleman in the audience in the future or now, this is Brian Graves. I had the Brian right? Okay. He will most likely be one of our new council members. So thank you for coming and welcome to the team here. So I don't have anything else. With that, is there a motion to adjourn? Eeny, meeny, okay, Ms. Lacy seconded that. All those in favor signify with aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion passes 3-0. Thank you very much. It was fun, right?
Rock.